Yahweh, if I have found favor in your eyes, please do not pass your servant by. Please let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree.
I think that battery might be down. That we did too.
Yeah, it just
Your battery, yeah.
18:3. And he said, Yahweh, if I found favor in your eyes, please do not pass your servant by. Please let a little water be brought and wash your feet and rest yourselves under the tree. And let me bring a piece of bread and refresh your hearts, and then go on. For this is why you have come to your servant. And they said, do as you have said. So Abraham ran into the tent to Sarah and said, hurry, make ready 3 seahs of fine flour, knead it, and make cakes. And Abraham ran to the herd, took a tender and good calf, gave it to the young man, and he hurried to prepare it. And he took curds of milk and the calf which he had prepared, and put it before them, and he stood by them under the tree as they ate. And they said to him, where is Sarah, your wife? And he said, see, in the tent. And he said, I shall certainly return to you according to the time of life, and see, Sarah, your wife, is to have a son. And Sarah was listening in the tent door, which was behind him. Now Abraham and Sarah were old, well advanced in age, and Sarah passed the way of woman. And Sarah laughed within herself, saying, after I have grown old, shall I have pleasure, my master being old too? And Yahweh said to Abraham, why did Sarah laugh, saying, shall I truly have a child since I am old? Is any matter too hard for Yahweh? At the appointed time, I am going to return to you according to the time of life, and Sarah is to have a son. But Sarah denied it, saying, I did not laugh, for she was afraid. And he said, no, you did laugh. And the men rose up from there and looked toward Sodom, and Abraham went with them to send them away. And Yahweh said, shall I hide from Abraham what I am doing? Since Abraham is certainly going to become a great and mighty nation, and all the nations of the earth shall be blessed in him. For I have known him so that he commands his children and his household after him to guard the way of Yahweh, to do righteousness and right ruling, so that Yahweh brings to Abraham what he has spoken to him. And Yahweh said, because the outcry against Sodom and Gomorrah is great, and because their sin is very great, heavy, I am going down now to see whether they have done altogether according to the outcry against it that has come to me, and if not, I know. So the men turned away from there and went towards Sodom, but Abraham still stood before Yahweh. And Abraham drew near and said, would you also destroy the righteous with the wicked? Suppose there are 50 righteous within the city. Would you also destroy the place and not spare for the 50 righteous that were in it? Far be it from you to act in this way, to slay the righteous with the wicked, so that the righteous should be as the wicked. Far be it from you. Does the judge of all the earth do not right? And Yahweh said, if I find in Sodom 50 righteous then within the city, then I shall spare all the place and for their sakes. And Abraham answered and said, look, please, I am but dust and ashes, and have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh. Suppose there are 5 less than the 50 righteous, would you destroy all of the city for the lack of 5? And he said, if I find there 45, I do not destroy it. And he spoke to him again and said, suppose there are found 40. And he said, I would not do it for the sake of the 40. And he said, let not Yahweh be displeased, and let me speak. Suppose there are found 30. And he said, I would not do it if I find 30 there. And he said, look, please, I have taken it upon myself to speak to Yahweh. Suppose there are found 20. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of the 20. And he said, let not Yahweh be displeased, but let me speak only this time. Suppose there are found 10. And he said, I would not destroy it for the sake of the 10. Then Yahweh went away as soon as he had ended speaking with Abraham, and Abraham returned to his place.
And they say Trump has the art of the deal. Man, he was flat working with the Father, wasn't he? But you know, the interesting thing about that is that he had this relationship with the Father, and the Father gave him credit for holding his children. You know, everything that he had was right with the Father. Everything that he was, his family was walking with the Father. He was close to the Father. He knew what the Father wanted, you know, and I know that he didn't have children by Sarah, but still he kept everything in order, and the Father said that was the reason that he was close to him. And can you imagine the Father coming to want to talk to you and share with you what he's going to do because he's so close to you, he don't want to hide it from you? That would be so awesome, just so awesome to be that close to the Father that you can just have those beautiful conversations with him, and that he can let you know what's coming down the line. Anybody? All right. Go to the next chapter then.
And the two messengers came to Sodom in the evening, and Lot was sitting in the gate of Sodom. When Lot saw them, he rose to meet them, and he bowed himself with his face toward the ground, and he said, look, please, my masters, please turn in to your servant's house and spend the night, and wash your feet, and rise early, and go your way. And they said, no, but let us spend the night in the open square. But he urged them strongly, and they turned in to him and came into his house, and he made them a feast, and baked unleavened bread, and they ate. Before they lay down, the men of the city, the men of Sodom, both old and young, all the people from every part surrounded the house. And they called to Lot and said to him, where are the men who came to you tonight? Bring them out to us, and let us know them. So Lot went out to them through the doorway and shut the door behind him and said, please, my brothers, do not do evil. Look, please, I have two daughters who have not known a man. Please let me bring them out to you and do to them as is good in your eyes. Only do no deed to these men, because they have come under the shadow of my roof. But they said, stand back. And they said, this one came in to sojourn, and should he always judge? Now we are going to treat you as you worse than them. So they pressed hard against the man Lot, and came near to break down the door. But the men reached out their hands and pulled Lot into the house with them and shut the door. Then they struck the men who were at the doorway of the house with blindness, both small and great. And they wearied themselves to find the door. And the men said to Lot, Have you anyone else here, a son-in-law, and your sons and your daughters, and whoever you have in the city, bring them out of this place. For we are going to destroy this place, because the cry against them has grown great before the face of Yahweh, and Yahweh has sent us to destroy it. And Lot went out and spoke to his son-in-law, who had married his daughters, and said, Get up, get out of this place, for Yahweh is going to destroy this city. But to his son-in-law, it seemed to be as he was joking. And when morning dawned, the messenger urged Lot to hurry, saying, Get up, take your wife and your 2 daughters who are here, lest you be consumed in the punishment of the city. And while he lingered, the men took hold of his hand and his wife's hand and the hands of his 2 daughters, Yahweh having compassion on him, and they brought him out and put him outside the city. And it came to be, when they had brought them outside the city, that he said, Escape for your life, do not look behind, nor stay anywhere in the plain. Escape to the mountains, lest you be consumed. And Lot said to them, Oh no, Yahweh, look, please, your servant has found favor in your eyes, and you have increased your kindness which you've shown me by saving my life. But I am unable to escape to the mountains, lest calamity overtake me and I die. Look, please, this city is near enough to flee to, and it is small. Please let me escape there. Is it not a small matter? And let my life be saved. And he said to him, Look, I have favored you concerning this matter also, without overthrowing this city for which you have spoken. Hurry, escape there, for I am not able to do any deed until you arrive there. So the name of the city is called Zor. The sun had risen upon the earth when Lot entered Zor, and Yahweh rained sulfur and fire on Sodom and Gomorrah, and Yahweh out of from Yahweh out of the heavens. So he overthrew these cities and all the plain and all the inhabitants of the city and what grew on the ground. And his wife looked back from behind him, and she became a post of salt. And Abraham arose early in the morning to the place where he had stood before Yahweh, and he looked toward Sodom and Gomorrah, and toward all the land of the plain. And he looked and saw the smoke of the land which went up like the smoke of a furnace. And it came to be, when Almighty Sovereign destroyed the cities of the plain, the Almighty Sovereign remembered Abraham and sent Lot out of the midst of the overthrow, and he overthrew the cities in which Lot had dwelt. And Lot went up out of Zor and dwelt in the mountains, and his 2 daughters were with him, for he was afraid to dwell in Zor, and he and his 2 daughters dwelt in the cave. And and the firstborn said to the younger, Our father is old, and there is no man on the earth to come into us, as the way of all the earth. Come, let us make our father drink wine and lie with him, so that we preserve the seed of our father. So they made their father drink wine that night, and the firstborn went in and lay with her father. And he was not aware of it when she lay down and when she arose. And it came to be on the next day that the firstborn said to the younger, See, I lay with my father last night. Let us make him drink wine tonight as well, and you go in and lie with him, so that we keep the seed of our father. So they made their father drink wine that night as well. And the younger arose and lay with him, and he was not aware of it when she lay down or when she arose. Thus both the daughters of Lot became pregnant by their father, and the firstborn bore a son and called his name Moab. He is the father of the Moabites to this day. And the younger She also bore a son, and called his name Ben-Ammi. He is the father of the children of Ammon to this day.
It's interesting how these two tribes started, Moab and Ammon. They started out in sin, horrible transgression. And I don't think that the daughters intended to do evil. I think their intent was good. And this is kind of what we talked about last night, commitment. They were committed to promote their father's family name, to promote his inheritance. And I think that in doing that, they thought they were right. But not knowing that the violation that they would bring and the curse that they would bring on the offspring. Sometimes we get committed to things that are not right. And sometimes we are pushed in a direction because the wicked one wants to destroy the plans of the Father. He wants to destroy them. And the Father gave us the ability to choose. Now, eventually, the Father is going to win, whether we do or not. He's going to win. But in the process, we have the opportunity of winning with Him. We have the opportunity of having victory with Him. But we have to do it His way, not our way. And sometimes we get ahead of Yahweh. I have done it in the ministry, and every time I've gotten ahead of it, it's been painful. So, I just know that we have to stop, listen, and be careful to follow the directions that the Father gives us, and to be able to separate them, discern them between the Father's will and what has come up that is contrary to the Word. And the only way you can do that is know the Word. Anybody? Go ahead.
So I just had a comment going through 18 and 19. Something I did in times past was that at least the scriptures version, and I'm not sure how other versions have it, in 18 and 19 there's a big mix of when the name Yahuwah is used, Yod He Vav He, or when, at least in Strong's, and so it's something I want to dig out deeper in the scriptures, actual what they use for translation. But there's a mix of when it uses the tetragrammaton, Yod He Vav He, and when it uses Adonai.
Yeah.
There's a whole bunch of Adonai in 18, a little bit in 19. And so this is often these chapters, where we see three messengers. We see Yahuwah still talking with Abram. There's a lot of people who wonder, who are the messengers? Are they heavenly? Are they earthly? Is one a representation of something? There's a lot of study, and I think a lot of different perspectives and understanding on it. But I was surprised when I came across at least one of those searchings out a couple of years ago, and at least noticed in my translation, the scriptures, the 2009 version, it says the tetragrammaton almost all the way through, and half of the time, at least the Strong's, it's not the tetragrammaton, it's Adonai.
Yeah.
So it's I have it noted because I think it's significant. And so again, searching out where the scriptures gets their backing, if it's something different than where the Strong's comes from, maybe they get it from somewhere where all of the instances are Yahuwah. But if it's saying my Lord or my Master, Adonai, That, that's different. That can be used for a person, that can be used for a master, that can be used for a husband.
I like the English term.
Very common, yes. It's just a title, and it's not say a lowly title, but it's a very common title used in Hebrew. So I think it's just worth looking at, and especially since at least on the live stream we go through the scriptures, is the version that we use going through that. So again, I don't know how other people's translations are, or in the English when it's, all caps, Lord, if it's used that way, or if it ever has the lowercase all Lord, or a capital L lowercase ord, just in that difference, especially again in 18, when Abraham's talking with these people, and he clearly hears Yahuwah directly. There are instances for that. 18:1, is several. 13, 14. So again, I'm kind of going back to chapter 18. And in 19, when it talks about Yahuwah is the one who rains down sulfur, and then in 24 and 19:27, when Abraham goes back to the place where he had stood before Yahuwah. So those, it's definitely used there, but there are other times, again, in the midst of the people or the messengers that are there, Adonai is used really commonly. So just wanted to.
My experience is that when it is Adonai, that the Lord is not capitalized all the way through. Now, that might be some places where it is different than that, but that's been my experience, that where the word Adonai is, that the Lord is not capitalized all the way through. Where it's capitalized all the way through is Yod Hey Vav Hey. So I'm gonna look into that more, because since you brought it up.
Yes, yeah, you're correct there. And it can be, sometimes it's both. When you look at just an English that doesn't use the tetragrammaton, sometimes it's capital L, lowercase ord, because they assume or it's presumed that it is Yah, the Lord, but it's not the tetragrammaton, it's not the Yod Hey Vav Hey, but they're assuming it's him, master.
Right.
And then sometimes it's talking about people or it's talking about something else. And so then it's all lowercase Lord, because like Paul, although it's the Greek equivalent. But yeah, it's definitely something to, again, I think be aware of whatever translation you have, especially because I know these chapters, for good cause, there's always a good discussion that can be had in, who exactly are these messengers, and when is Yah speaking, when are they speaking, is it through agency, that Yah is speaking through them, just like the prophets, that Yah spoke through the prophets to give the message, and so things like that. But that was just something I was glad to come across a couple years ago, at least in mine.
Good. Anybody? Go ahead.
Going on with what Rachel was saying there, in 18, there were 3 that appeared to Abraham. But in 19, there were only 2 that came to Lot.
Right.
So was Yahweh one of the 3?
It indicates that he was, but I'm not sure about the language there. Because it's, we don't know. It talks about times where that the Father appears and talks to people. We don't know how he appeared, but we do know that no man could see the face of the Father and live. So we know we don't know what they saw, the glory, what they saw, what they spoke to. We don't know. And there's places where Isaac wrestled with an angel, But in the first accounting of it, it said he wrestled with the Father. So, and in the second time where it talks about, gives an account of it, the word that used there is for angel only, not Yahweh. So sometimes it's a little confusing, but go ahead.
Well, just, we have a custom of,
Do you mind using it?
How's that? There we go. We have a custom of representation that goes back into these times and well before that, so that when you sent an ambassador, it was the same as you actually being there.
Right.
So whenever the messengers show up, they're having been sent there, it's as if the Father's there. So again, we don't know what they look like, their appearance or anything like that, but they're speaking the words given to them, and it was received the same way. So that's how Abraham's having that conversation. Oh, please, Lord, Master, permit me this one more time. As if he's speaking to him face to face. Well, then likewise, the Father's looking at that as if he's speaking to Abraham face to face. Is he literally in the throne room? Is he literally seeing the Creator face to face? No. So we still have that tradition today. So there's some of these customs that are unspoken that you can kind of look past that. And then Rachel, have you ever looked at the Sefer translation?
Not of that one, no. I have in other things, but not in this chapter specifically.
Okay, I have a copy of that if you're interested later.
Okay.
Go ahead, sister.
Well, I have the Sefer. I'm reading this. All right. My Sefer says Yahuwah all the way through, from the beginning to the end of that section. So 17 through 22, it says Yahuwah. So, and they go back to the Hebrew so it must have been the
Tetragrammaton.
yeah, that they translated it. But mine has no Adonai on there at all. Just FYI.
I think it's important that we examine these things the best we can. But I think it's also very important that we there are some things that are standard based, are not going to change. And as far as I'm concerned, whenever Almighty Yahweh said, no man can see my face and live, that cinched it right there. No matter what happens, they're not going to see his face. He wouldn't even let Moshe see his face. So we need to understand that there's some things that's not going to change. And that's one of them, I believe. Anybody? All right, let's go to the next chapter.
RC, Craig's got something.
Oh, okay, what?
Craig's got something.
He just
All right,
can't see
I can't see
Sam's
it.
head.
Somebody's heading somewhere.
Abraham, he was a model citizen, as you would say. He was the head of his household, and everybody under his household listened to him.
Yes.
And Lot had sit under him. So when the three messengers come before Abraham, he immediately runs to him and bows before them, and then he prepares food for them. Well, when the two messengers come into Sodom and they come to Lot, Lot does the same thing because he had the training of Abraham.
Yeah,
So you see how the customs come down through the family, and that's why the father honored Abraham so much.
Yeah.
Is because his family or the whole peoples under him, they adhered to what Abraham was saying. All the men got circumcised. You know, anybody that was bought with his money or born in under his household,
yeah,
he, you know, he had rulership over them, and they succumbed to what Abraham said, and he passed that on to Lot, and Lot did it in his household too.
mhm,
Probably not as well as Abraham did, but I think it's interesting that they both act the same way. And when a stranger comes to us, we should treat them with respect and honor.
yes,
Because the Father sees that. He wants us to be hospitable. He wants us to be a reflection of Him.
not prideful and arrogant. You know,
What were their signs?
too many people that are, trying to walk the walk, you know, in a much religious attitude, become prideful and arrogant, and they're not as open as they should be to others to bring them in. And actually, we can shove them away rather than bring them in.
Were there any signs of the angels? Were there any signs that they were angels when they saw them?
Can't hear you.
Were there any signs that they were angels when they saw them? Because they both recognized that they were holy men. How did they recognize that they were holy men?
Well, they were holy, and I believe that they were angels, you know. That's my belief. I can't prove that. Go ahead.
The word calls them messengers, and a
Yeah.
lot of times it's translated messengers as angels. You know,
That's,
Were there
Yeah.
any outward
that's a very
signs?
open term, though.
I don't know. Outside, they probably treated everybody that way.
Yeah,
Everybody that come into them, they probably treated that way. Abraham was very hospitable, and I think in the book of Jasher it talks about how he would set up at the intersections of walkways or highways, and when people come through, he was very hospitable to them.
Just to add to that, as I was writing the word this year, when I was in Genesis 28, I never saw this before, but it also talks about the messengers and he dreamed and saw a ladder and set up on the earth, and its top reached to the heavens and saw messengers of Yahweh going up and going down on it.
anybody? All right, let's go to the next chapter.
And Abraham departed from there to the land of the Negev, and dwelt between Kadesh and Shur, and stayed in Gerar. And Abraham said concerning Sarah his wife, she is my sister. And Abimelech, sovereign of Gerar, sent and took Sarah. And Almighty Sovereign came to Abimelech in a dream by night, and said to him, see, you are a dead man because of the woman whom you have taken, for she is a man's wife. However, Abimelech did not come near her, and he said, Yahweh, would you slay a righteous nation also? Did he not say to me, she is my sister? And She herself said, he is my brother. And in the integrity of my heart and in the innocence of my hands, I have done this. And Almighty Sovereign said to him in a dream, though I know that I did this, that you did this in the integrity of your heart, and so kept you from sinning against me. For this reason, I did not let you touch her. And now, return the man's wife, for he is a prophet, and let him pray for you, and you live. But if you do not return her, know that you shall certainly die, you and all that are yours. So Abimelech rose early in the morning and called all his servants and spoke all these words in their hearing. And the men were greatly frightened. And Abimelech called Abraham and said to him, what have you done to us? And what have I sinned against you that you have brought on me and on my reign a great sin? You have done matters to me that should not be done. And Abimelech said to Abraham, what do you have in view that you have done this matter? And Abraham said, only because I said the reverence of Almighty Sovereign is not in this place, and they shall kill me for the sake of my wife. And yet she is truly my sister. She is the daughter of my father, but not the daughter of my mother. And she became my wife. And it came to be when Almighty Sovereign caused me to wander from my father's house that I said to her, this is your kindness that you should do for me in every place wherever we go. Say of me, he is my brother. Then Abimelech took sheep and cattle and male and female servants. He gave them to Abraham, and he returned Sarah, his wife, to him. And Abimelech said, see, my land is before you. Dwell wherever it is good in your eyes. And to Sarah he said, see, I have given your brother 1,000 pieces of silver. See, it is to you a covering of eyes before all who are with you, and before all others, and you are clear before anyone. And Abraham prayed to Almighty Sovereign, and Almighty Sovereign healed Abimelech and his wife and his female servants, so they bore children. For Yahweh had closed up all the wombs of the house of Abimelech because of Sarah, Abraham's wife.
Look at all the father did to protect her and him. Man, that's nothing but mercy.
Yes.
I mean, what would be natural to take a woman to be your wife and not touch her? That would that's not even natural. The father prevented that because the man was innocent in what he intended. He did not intend to take another man's wife, and he did not intend to be intimate with her as somebody else's wife, but his wife. And so the father protected him and would not let him touch her. Awesome. Awesome. What kind of protection do you get like that from anywhere? That is awesome. When people wonder about why you are so diligent about serving the Father and doing as He said, this is why you need His protection. Because every one of us, I don't want to insult you, but every one of us has the ability to be stupid.
Yes. I know that.
Most of us are.
And we need the Father to straighten out our mind for us and to keep it on track.
Yes, I agree.
Anybody? All right, let's go to the next chapter then.
And Yahweh visited Sarah as he had said, and Yahweh did for Sarah as he had spoken. So Sarah conceived and bore Abraham a son in his old age, at the appointed time of which Almighty Sovereign had spoken to him. And Abraham called the name of his son, who was born to him from Sarah, bore to him Isaac. And Abraham circumcised his son Isaac on the 8th day, or when he was 8 days old, as Yahweh had commanded him. And Abraham was 100 years old when his son Isaac was born. And Sarah said, Almighty Sovereign has made me laugh, and everyone who hears of it laughs with me. And she said, Who would have said to Abraham that Sarah would nurse a child, for I have borne him a son in his old age. And the child grew and was weaned, and Abraham made a great feast on the day of Isaac was weaned. And Sarah saw the son of Hagar, the Mitzrayite, whom she had borne to Abraham, mocking. So she said to Abraham, Drive out this female servant and her son, for the son of this female servant shall not inherit with my son, with Isaac. And the matter was very evil in the eyes of Abraham because of his son. But Almighty Sovereign said to Abraham, Let it not be evil in your eyes because of the boy and because of your female servant. Whatever Sarah has said to you, listen to her voice, for in Isaac your seed is called. And of the son of the female servant I also make a nation, because he is your seed. And Abraham rose early in the morning and took bread and a skin of water, which he gave to Hagar, putting it on her shoulder, also the boy, and sent her away. And she left and wandered in the wilderness of Beersheba. And the water in the skin was used up, and she placed the boy under one of the shrubs. And she went and sat down about a bow shot away, for she said, Let me not see the death of the boy. And she sat opposite to him, lifted up her voice, and wept. And Almighty Sovereign heard the voice of the boy, and the messenger of Almighty Sovereign called to Hagar from the heavens, and said to her, What is the matter with you, Hagar? Do you fear? For Almighty Sovereign has heard the voice of the boy, where he is. Arise, lift up the boy, and hold him with your hand, and I make a great nation of him. And Almighty Sovereign opened the eyes, and she saw a well of water. And she went and filled the skin with water, and gave the boy a drink. And Almighty Sovereign was with the boy, and he grew and dwelt in the wilderness and became an archer. And he dwelt in the wilderness of Paran. And his mother took a wife for him in the land of Livestream. And it came to be at that time that Abimelech and Phicol, the commander of his army, spoke to Abraham, saying, Almighty Sovereign is with you in all that you do. And now swear to me by Almighty Sovereign not to be untrue to me, to my offspring, or to my descendants. Do to me according to the kindness that I have done to you and to the land in which you have dwelt. And Abraham said, I swear. And Abraham reproved Abimelech because of the well water which Abimelech's servants had seized. And Abimelech said, I do not know who has done this deed, neither did you inform me, nor did I hear until today. So Abraham took sheep and cattle and gave it to Abimelech, and the two of them made a covenant. And Abraham put 7 ewe lambs of the flock by themselves. And Abimelech asked Abraham, what are these 7 ewe lambs which you have put by themselves? And he said, Take these 7 ewe lambs from my hand to be my witness that I have dug this well. So he called that place Beersheba, because the two of them swore an oath there. Thus they made a covenant at Beersheba, and Abimelech rose with Phicol, the commander of his army, and they returned to the land of the Philistines. And he planted a tamarisk tree in Beersheba, and there called on the name of Yahweh, the Almighty Sovereign, everlasting Sovereign. And Abraham sojourned in the land of the Philistines many days.
As we were talking about the messengers, of the previous chapters, I thought it was interesting when we're talking about Hagar here, which is also a fun story to look at with all of that, that it says, thank you.
I saw that too.
Well, okay, so yes, at 17. So it says, and Elohim heard the voice of the boy, and the messenger of Elohim called to Hagar from the heavens. And that's what caught my eye, is that when we talk usually about messengers, and when we're talking whether it's a human, because that's my understanding. Messengers can be in a human form, they can be in a heavenly, like a spiritual, what we think of angels, or maybe some more. I'm still studying. But at least this one's interesting to me, that the messenger doesn't come down, not like Abraham, or at least like wasn't down on the same level. Maybe Abraham's were messengers of humankind, I don't know. But this one says, the messenger of Elohim called from the heavens. So like that's the interaction is vertical here with Hagar, not horizontal. So I think that's kind of interesting, and I don't know that it means it's completely different from Abraham's interaction with the messengers or what, but I think that this is definitely a spiritual, and heard some different perspectives on it, but I think it's definitely a spiritual messenger of some sort, whether it is an angel like we think of Michael and Gabriel, or if it is Yahusha in a pre-human form, if whatever that looks like, or if it's something different. But to me, this is very vertical when he's calling from the heavens. The only other thing I can think of is like John in Revelation, when he just hears voices, like he hears a voice like thunder or like many waters. But, and I can't remember, is it the come up here? Is that in Revelation when the messenger says, come up here to John?
Well,
I think. And so that's the only other thing I can think of, is from where there's a call from the heavens.
well, there's a come up here to the two prophets.
To prophets too?
After they rose from the dead.
Okay.
He says, come up here.
Okay. You'll have to find, I would like to look into that, that'd be cool.
That's in Is it Revelation?
In Revelation.
You're talking about the two witnesses.
Oh, okay, the two witnesses in Revelation that they say come up here. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
after they raised back from the dead.
And it may say in Revelation. Okay. And I don't know if that specifically attributes it to Yahuwah in Revelation, that with the two messengers, or if it's different, but that one caught my eye, as it did Carlos, it sounds like, so kind of interesting there.
And it's function over form also.
Okay.
So even like
Mic for the hard of hearing.
the messenger,
No.
the destroyer that's going to kill, what's his name? One riding on the talking donkey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Balaam. That messenger was huge and gigantic and big sword and that blocking the way.
Yeah.
Okay, so of course, when he finally sees it, he's like,
Sure. Yeah.
So, but it's function over the form. What are they doing?
Yeah. That's a really good point, I think.
But also it says, the messenger of Elohim called to Hagar from the heavens and said to her, "What is the matter with you?" So there's an exclamation coming down.
Do not fear.
It's like, what do you not understand?
And Paul on the road to Emmaus,
Yeah, really, oh.
you know, and the voice, they all heard the sound of the voice, but Paul's the only one that understands the words.
Yes.
True.
So, you know, that's getting your attention, you know. Yes, Lord, I'm paying attention.
I'm listening.
Versus Abraham was already paying attention.
Yeah.
So then to sit down and have that conversation.
That's a good point.
What is the matter with you?
Anybody.
Okay, I had one more thought. I think it's so interesting to me reading through this story with Hagar, in that it uses the term boy all throughout here. Yet we know he's at least 13 years old. And it's just interesting. He's a young man. I mean, he's like Thomas's age, to where, I mean, is he weeping under the bush? You know, to think, like, if you just read this story without any context, you would think he's like a little child, like the girl's his age, or even younger, 3, 4, 5. But he's at least 13 because we know that's when he was circumcised before Isaac was even conceived. So like probably 14 plus. I don't know how soon it was, you know, that this mocking happened and they were sent away. But I think it's just interesting. And she lifts him up, you know, like the messenger tells her, arise, lift the boy and hold him with your hand. And I mean, it just is an interesting thing to me. I don't fully understand it, but it's just always, it catches my attention when it just seems like he's this little child over there not doing anything, and he's what would be called a young man, like an apt young man in that culture. And so it's just interesting. No?
No.
Sam doesn't agree.
Use the mic, Sam, so everyone can hear you.
Yes.
No, he wouldn't have been considered anything but a boy, and would have only been considered approaching manhood as he increased about the age of 30. The age of 30.
20 was warfare, though.
Yeah, and we still send our boys off today at 18. But we still call them boys, don't we? We don't really consider a man until he's mid-20s,
That's true.
right?
Good point. Good point.
We're slower.
The
to
brains aren't
understand
fully
women.
developed.
But yeah, Ishmael's probably like 18 there.
Yeah, maybe.
Somewhere
Yeah.
about.
Okay, that's a good point. Still.
But yeah, I mean, thinking boys, we send our boys over to war. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
17, 18, 19, and that does.
If they are adults.
Well, he was 16 or 17 years older than Isaac, wasn't he?
14.
14.
14, yeah, 13.
Yeah. It just, this is after, you know, because that feast that he's mocking is done at, you know, Isaac's weaning. So
Probably 5, 6.
2 or
You
3.
think earlier?
So,
Yeah, we need 3.
you know, and then did Abraham send him away right away? You know, there's a lot of time in there.
Good point. I'll try to remember that when I read through next year. Think of him as that.
Well, the thing I keep laughing about is you know, I'm too old to have a kid, and then they go traveling a bit, and then she's snatched up by the local king, you know, because she's still hot. It's like,
Marla
what?
says, use your mic, or you wanting to talk. Marla wants to talk.
Okay,
There you go.
all right. Back in chapter 20, I think we're missing something here that he just touched on, is they get the message that she's gonna have a child, and she's laughing because she knows she can't have a child at her age, and she's obviously gone through what women go through so they
Right.
can no longer have children.
Uh-huh.
And in the very next chapter, there's a miracle going on here. She has been, her womb is being restored. She is beautiful. Obviously, Pharaoh would want to marry her if she, was some old
Bag of
hag,
bones.
And that is the miracle, that's, and Yah restored her womb and
Yeah.
her,
Right.
yeah,
The ability to
the
conceive.
ability. And unless this chapter is out of order, which is a possibility, I would suppose, we don't look at that miracle that's going on here, and they're describing it to us. She's so beautiful that Pharaoh wants her.
And she's
So,
90.
Yeah, and she's 90 years old. So yeah, so nobody ever makes mention of this miracle because this is so important to getting the seed right for
Yeah.
the line. And nobody really discusses that.
That's good.
Everybody does. Everybody.
Yeah.
Remember, you're my sister.
Yeah.
Yeah, he certainly do it.
You guys, where are we at now?
22.
22.
Correct?
We're ready to start chapter
Craig stepped
22.
out. Roger.
I'll read.
Mom, are you done yet? Not quite. Did a good job.
Now, I noticed something here when I read it in the scriptures, that the letter B has an underscore under it. So, like here in the scriptures in verse 1 of 22, it says, "And it came to be after these events that Elohim tried Abraham and said to him, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. The way I read that would be Abraham. The B would be pronounced as a V. And the same would be for Abimelech.
Or perhaps Avraham.
Abraham, yep.
Uh,
So if you look at the word
I've
Abimelech
actually heard
in here,
Avraham from somebody I talked to that lived over
One at a
there
time.
somewhere.
what?
One at a time.
What?
We can't hear both of you talking.
So if you look at the word Abimelech, it has a B underscore as well. And I would pronounce that as Abimelech, 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 V-I. Yeah, I know. I'll just go ahead and start with 22.
It's a good point.
And it came to be after these events that Elohim tried Abraham and said to him, Abraham, and he said, Here I am. And he said, Take your son now, your only son, Ishak, whom you love, and go to the land of Moriah, and offer him there as an ascending offering on one of the mountains which I command you. And Abraham rose early in the morning and saddled his donkey, and took 2 of his young men with him, and Ishak his son. And he split the wood for this ascending offering, and arose and went to the place which Elohim had commanded him. And on the 3rd day, Abraham lifted his eyes and saw the place from a distance. So Abraham said to his young man, Stay here with the donkey, while the boy and I go over there and worship, and come back to you. And Abraham took the wood of the ascending offering, and laid it on Ishak his son. And he took the fire in his hand and the knife, and the 2 of them went together. And Ishak spoke to Abraham, his father, and said, My father. And he said, Here I am, my son. And he said, See the fire and the wood, but where is the lamb for an ascending offering? And Abraham said, My son, Elohim does provide for himself the lamb for an ascending offering. And the 2 of them went together. And they came to the place which Elohim had commanded him. And Abraham built a slaughter place there and placed the wood in order. And he bound Ishak his son and laid him on the slaughter place upon the wood. And Abraham stretched out his hand and took the knife to slay his son. But the messenger of Yahweh came, called to him from the heavens, and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And he said, Do not lay your hand on the boy, nor touch him, for now I know that you fear Elohim, seeing you have not withheld your son, your only son, from me. And Abraham lifted his eyes and looked and saw behind him a ram caught in the bush by its horns. And Abraham went and took the ram and offered it up for an ascending offering instead of his son. And Abraham called the name of the place Yahweh Yireh, as it is said to this day, on the mountain Yahweh provides. And the messenger of Yahweh called to Abraham a second time from the heavens, and said, By myself I have sworn, declares Yahweh, because you have done this, and have not withheld your son, your only son, that I shall certainly bless you, and I shall certainly increase your seed as the stars of the heavens, and as the sand which is on the seashore. And let your seed possess the gate of their enemies. And in your seed all the nations of the earth shall be blessed, because you have obeyed my voice. Then Abraham returned to his young men, and they rose up and went together to Beersheba. And Abraham dwelt at Beersheba. And it came to be after these events that it was reported to Abraham, saying, See, Milcah too has borne children to your brother Nahor. Uz his firstborn, and Buz his brother, and Kemuel the father of Aram, and Kesed, and Hazo, and Pildash, and Nidpah, and Bethuel. And Bethuel brought forth Rivkah. These 8 Milcah bore to Nahor, Abraham's brother, and his concubine, whose name was Reumah, who also bore Teva, and Gaham, and Tahash, and Ma'akah.
Anyway, I think, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, in verse 2, it says, Take your son now, your only son, Yitzhak.
He did not recognize Hagar's son as Abraham's son in this scripture here. He only recognized Isaac as a son, the only son. He mentioned it twice. The only son.
That's because Ishak was the blessed one.
Right.
The spirit. Okay. That word is yakid, and it's like the beloved.
Beloved son.
Yeah.
Good, Mike.
I'm looking at it here, Sam.
Yeah, the Hebrew word is yakid, which is beloved. So it could be said of the firstborn, and it's, that same phraseology is used with Yeshua later.
I want to say, and it shows like what will happen in the future when Yah gives his only son, Yeshua.
Yes.
So it's a
Foreshadowing.
foreshadowing. How Yah knows everything and how he knows.
Anybody? Go ahead.
Is your mic on?
Not bad. Thanks.
Oh, mine. Forget to turn it off, forget to turn it on. Go ahead.
So from the my comment there before in 21:17, when we hear about the messenger calling from the heavens, we do see it with this story too. We see it twice. in verse 11 and verse 15. So in 11 it says, "But the messenger of Yahuwah called to Abraham from the heavens and said, Abraham, Abraham. And he said, Here I am. And then in 15 it says, And the messenger of Yahuwah called to Abraham a second time from the heavens." So again, just another instance of it being different than just showing up. Let's get you some curds and stew and meat and stuff. He's calling, the messenger's calling from the heavens. We were talking, I brought that up in 21 RC when you stepped out. Just as different in 21:17 with Hagar, and then we see it also in this chapter with the story of Abraham, where it specifically says the messenger of Elohim called from the heavens. So it being different than a messenger, at least it reads differently.
Yeah.
Whether everyone's supernatural, there's earthly ones, messengers, maybe earthly ones appear to Abraham, and this is like a spiritual being, whoever that might be, calling from the heavens. That messenger of Yahuwah is actually calling from the heavens in Hagar's instance and in this instance, rather than just showing up as a horizontal conversation. It's a vertical conversation.
Very, very possible.
Of some sort. Great.
Anybody? Go ahead.
You kind of had that experience in your pickup truck, didn't you?
Do what?
I said you kind of had that experience in your pickup truck, didn't
Most certainly. Most certainly. I regret today ever getting rid of that pickup truck.
You tell, what happened?
Well, actually, I was in California. We was in Assembly of God Church that I really liked. We really liked it. They had the head on straight as far as the ministry, ministering to the homeless, the street people, and that's where they put their money. The pastor told me, they promised the pastor to build a new church if he'd come pastoring. He said, if you build a new church, I won't be there. You know, so anyhow, we were sitting in praise and worship one night, and it's like the Father just put in my mind that we were coming back to Kansas. And we came home and I told my wife, I said, I think the Father's going to move us back to Kansas. She said, oh, I hope not. So anyhow, I just kind of ignored it for a couple of weeks. And then I was sitting one morning waiting to go to work, you know, drinking coffee, listening to Focus Family Radio, waiting for everybody to get there. And all of a sudden, the cab of that truck filled up. I said, Kansas! And I called my wife and told her, you better get packed. We're going.
Yeah. Praise Yah.
Yes, praise God. I agree.
That's exactly the way it was. And then another time that the Father spoke to me, May Beard was up in the mental ward here, and anyhow, I went up to see her, and she wasn't in the room, and I asked the lady, you know, the attendant there at the desk, when she'd be back. She said, that's none of your business. Okay. I said, I'm a pastor. I want to see her. It's none of your business. So I got up and I walked out and I went down to the truck and I sat in the truck and Father, it just ain't supposed to be this way. We're not supposed to be hitting a headstone every time we start. And he says, again, the cab of that truck filled up. When you've done all to stand, stand. I know how to do that. Went home, picked up a $3,000 check out of the mailbox. The Father is so good. He's so faithful. If we will just be faithful. I regret to this day getting rid of that truck.
Oh, yeah.
I know it wasn't a truck, but still it has a real attachment to it.
Oh, yeah.
Probably still runs real good too.
Do what?
Probably never wore out.
I said it probably runs real good too.
Yeah.
Probably didn't age any.
I love that the Father has conversations with us, loves us, and reveals to us. All right, anybody else? Okay, let's go to 2 Kings 4:1.
Second Kings 4:1. And a certain woman of the wives of the sons of the prophets cried out to Elisha, saying, Your servant, my husband, is dead, and you know that your servant feared Yahweh. And the lender has come to take my 2 sons to be his slaves. And Elisha said to her, What should I do for you? Inform me, what do you have in your house, in the house? And she said, Your female servant has none at all in the house except a pot of oil. And he said, Go, borrow vessels from everywhere, from all your neighbors' empty vessels, do not get a few. And when you have come in, you shall shut the door behind you and your sons, then pour it into all those vessels and set aside the filled ones. So she went from him and shut the door behind her and her sons, who brought the vessels to her, and she poured it out. And it came to be when the vessels were filled that she said to her son, Bring me another vessel. And he said to her, There is not another vessel. And the oil ceased. So she went and informed the man of Almighty Yahweh and said, Go, sell the oil and pay your debt. And you and your sons live on the rest. And it came to be on a day that Elisha went to them, where there was a prominent woman, and she took hold of him to eat some food. And it came to be, as often as he passed by, that he turned in there to eat some food. And she said to her husband, Look, I know that this is a set-apart man of Yahweh who passes by us continually. Please let us make a small upper room on the wall, and let us put a bed for him there, and a table, and a chair, and a lampstand. And it shall be, whenever he comes to us, let him turn in there. And it came to be on a day that he came there, and he turned into the upper room and lay down there. And he said to Gehazi, his servant, Call this Shunammite woman. So he called her, and she stood before him. And he said to him, Please say to her, Look, you have gone to all this trouble for us. What is there to be done for you? Should I speak on your behalf to the king or to the commander of the army? And she answered, I am dwelling among my own people. And he said, What then is to be done for her? And Gehazi answered, Well, she has no son, and her husband is old. And he said, Call her. So he called her, and she stood in the doorway. And he said, About this appointed time next year you shall embrace a son. And she said, No, my master, man of Almighty Yahweh, do not lie to your female servant. And the woman conceived and bore a son when the appointed time had come of which Elisha had spoken to her. And the child grew, and it came to be on a day that he went out to his father to the reapers. And he said to his father, My head, my head. And he said to his servant, Take him to his mother. So he took him and brought him to his mother, and he sat on her knees till noon and died. And she went up and laid him on the bed of the man of Almighty Yahweh, and shut the door on him and went out. And she called to her husband and said, Please send me one of the young men and one of the donkeys, that I hurry to the man of Yahweh and return. And he said, Why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon nor the Sabbath. And she said, It is well. And she saddled the donkey and said to her servant, Drive and go, and do not slow down except I speak to you. And she went out and came to the man of the Almighty Sovereign at Mount Carmel. And it came to be, when the man of the Almighty Sovereign saw her at a distance, that he said to his servant Gehazi, "See this Shunammite woman. Please run now to meet her and say to her, 'Is it well with you? Is it well with your husband? Is it well with the child?' And she answered, 'It is well.' And she came to the man of Yahweh at the hill, and she took a hold of him by the feet, but Gehazi came near to push her away. Then the man of Yahweh said, 'Leave her alone, for her being is bitter in her, and Yahweh has hidden it from me, and has not revealed it to me.' And she said, 'Did I ask a son of my master? Did I not say, do not deceive me?' And he said to Gehazi, 'Gird up your loins and take my staff in your hand and go. When you meet anyone, do not greet him, and when anyone greets you, do not answer him. And you shall lay my staff on the face of the child.' And the mother of the child said, 'As Yahweh lives, and as your being lives, I do not leave you.' And he rose and followed her. And Gehazi went on ahead of them and laid the staff on the face of the child, but there was no voice and there was no hearing. So he went back to meet him and reported to him, saying, 'The child has not awakened.' And Elisha came into the house and saw the child was dead, lying on his bed. And he went in and shut the door behind the two of them and prayed to Yahweh. And he went up and lay on the child and put his mouth on his mouth, and his eyes on his eyes, and his hands on his hands, and stretched himself out on the child, and the flesh of the child became warm. And he returned and walked back and forth in the house, then went up and stretched himself out on him. And the child sneezed 7 times, and the child opened his eyes, and he called Gehazi and said, 'Call the Shunammite.' So he called her, and she came in, and he said, 'Pick up your son.' Then she went in and fell at his feet, and bowed herself to the ground, and picked up her son, and went out."
How awesome. And they just blow you away with it. And the thing that really impresses me is when her husband asked her, "What's wrong? You know, is there anything?" She said, "All is well." Her child laying dead on the bed, and she said, "All is well." That confession in front of all this, in spite of all this, man, I don't know what it would take to make that kind of confession in that situation. That was amazing. That was amazing. All is well. She had insight, revelation, understanding, I believe, of how this was going to turn out, that it was not going to be for the death of the child totally. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Just hold down. Is it open? No. Sorry. I was trying to figure it out and it didn't work. I didn't press long enough. Okay, is this working now? No, not yet. Love all this newfangled stuff. I agree. How about that?
Yes.
Okay, thanks. It is well.
Yes.
That's one of my favorite hymns from long ago. It is well with my soul. It is well. And the man who wrote that hymn, he lost either his daughter or his wife or something in the middle of the ocean. The ship she was on sank, and he went out there and was inspired with that song, It Is Well. And I've taken that as a hint that even though my body may be old, decrepit, whatever, hi, how are you?
I'm wonderful, I'm blessed, I'm more than abundant. I made a habit of that, even though they can see that I'm struggling. I don't care. I'm still going to confess and say the truth, which is I am healed, I am blessed, I am more than abundant.
Praise you.
Oh, hallelujah and woohoo.
Praise you.
Okay, thank you for letting me share.
Anybody else? Go ahead.
Verse 23, he says, why are you going to him today? It is neither the new moon or the Sabbath. So this leads me to believe that she has a habit of going to him on the Sabbath
Yeah.
or on the new moon.
Right.
Wherever he's at, she wants to be. She wants to be with the man of Yahweh. To worship, to hear his words.
Yeah.
Because she knows he's special. And he's so special to this woman that, you know, she had her husband build him that special place.
Right.
For him. And so that's what got this all started was her respect for him, and he wanted Elisha wanted to give her something.
You bet.
So that's how she got her son. So it's really a blessed story. You know, when you give to the Father, when you do for the Father, He does for you. When we do to the Father, He does for us. And we don't do it for Him to do for us.
Yes.
Because when she was doing this, she didn't have any idea that she was going to get a son out of it.
She's doing it out of her love for you.
Yes, yes. And for the Father.
Mm-hmm. Anybody?
So basically, you have three miracles in this chapter. The oil-filled vessels, the birth of her son, and the resurrection of him from the dead.
It's right. It's all stacked right there in that one chapter. Man, it is a load. Guarantee you. Anybody else? All right. Let's go to Luke, first chapter, 26th verse.
Luke chapter 1, verses 26 to 38. And in the 6th month, the messenger Gabriel was sent by Elohim to a city of Galilee named Nazareth, to a maiden engaged to a man whose name was Joseph, of the house of David. And the maiden's name was Miriam. And the messenger, coming to her, said, Greetings, favored one. The master is with you. Blessed are you among women. But she was greatly disturbed at his word and wondered what kind of greeting this was. And the messenger said to her, Do not be afraid, Miriam, for you have found favor with Elohim. And see, you shall conceive in your womb and shall give birth to a son and call his name Yahusha. He shall be great and shall be called the Son of the Most High. And Yahweh Elohim shall give him the throne of his father David. And he shall reign over the house of Jacob forever, and there shall be no end to his reign. And Miriam said to the messenger, How shall this be, since I do not know a man? And the messenger answering said to her, The set-apart Spirit shall come upon you, and the power of the Most High shall overshadow you. And for that reason, the set-apart one born to you shall be called the Son of Elohim, the Yaqid of Elohim. And see, Elisheva, your relative, she has also conceived a son in her old age. And this is now the 6th month to her who was called barren. because with Elohim no matter shall be impossible. And Miriam said, see the female servant of Yahweh, let it be to me according to your word. And the messenger went away from her.
Hallelujah. There's just another place to testify to Yeshua's reality, the Son of Yahweh, and why he was the Son of Yahweh.
Yes.
Anybody? All right. Let's go to Luke 24:36.
Luke 20.
You're on, Roger. Luke 24:36 through 53. And as they were saying this, Yahushua himself stood in the midst of them and said to them, peace to you. And being startled and frightened, they thought they had seen a spirit. And he said to them, why are you troubled? And why do doubts arise in your hearts? See my hands and my feet, that it is I myself. Handle me and see. For a spirit does not have flesh and bones as you see I have. And saying this, he showed them his hands and his feet. And while they were still not believing for joy and marveling, he said to them, have you any food here? And they gave him a piece of a broiled fish and some honeycomb, and taking it, he ate in their presence. And he said to them, these are the words which I spoke to you while I was with you, that all have to be filled that were written in the Torah of Moshe and the prophets and the Telahim concerning me. Then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures and said to them, thus it has been written, and so it was necessary for the Messiah to suffer and to rise again from the dead the third day, and that repentance and forgiveness of sins should be proclaimed in his name to all nations, beginning at Jerusalem. And you are witnesses of these matters. And see, I am sending the promise of my Father upon you, but you are to remain in the city of Jerusalem until you are clothed with power from on high. And he led them out as far as Bethania, and lifting up his hands, he blessed them. And it came to be, while he was blessing them, that he was parted from them and was taken up into the heaven. And they, having bowed down to him, returned to Jerusalem with great joy, and were continually in the set-apart place, praising and blessing Elohim. Amen.
Thank you, Father. Anybody? Go ahead.
Verse 45, then he opened their minds to understand the scriptures.
Yes.
When we get so close to the Father and we're open to him, he opens our minds to the scriptures. And I thank him so much for that.
And I think that's the part that's missed with traditional Christianity. That obedience and covenant with the Father, walking in covenant, keeping his commandments. I think that is an opening to that he opens your mind when you are in submission and in obedience to him and covenant with him. And as long as you are rebellious in your mind and doing things your own way, he's not going to be involved in it. He's not going to be involved in it. And that's the reason we, as believers, should be, totally focused on walking in submission and obedience to the covenant. Because that's our relationship with him. Without that, we have no relationship. Anybody? All right. Let's go to 2 Peter 2:4.
Second Peter, verses 4 to 11. Chapter 2. For if Elohim did not spare the messengers who sinned, but sent them to Tartarus, and delivered them into chains of darkness, to be kept for judgment, it did not spare the world of old, but preserved Noah, a proclaimer of righteousness, and 7 others, bringing in the flood on the world of the wicked, and having reduced to ashes the cities of Sodom and Amorah, condemned them to destruction, having made them an example to those who afterward would live wickedly, and rescued righteous Lot, who was oppressed with the indecent behavior of the lawless. For day after day, that righteous man dwelling among them tortured his righteous being by seeing and hearing their lawless works. Then Yahweh knows how to rescue the reverent ones from trial, and to keep the unrighteous unto the day of judgment, to be punished. And most of all, these walking after the flesh in filthy lust and despising authority, bold, headstrong, speaking evil of the esteemed ones. Whereas messengers who are greater in strength and power do not bring a slanderous accusation against them before the master.
Hallelujah. Anybody? I think looking at that particular scripture, we ought to be cautious of how we come against people, leaders, and everything else. We ought to be real careful with our mouth. We can bring a lot of tragedy on ourselves. With loose lips, sink ships. You know, and that's just the way it is. And we need to understand that we got to watch our conversation.
Yes.
Put a zip on our lip. Go ahead.
That ties right in with the camp of the enemy, is the accuser of the brethren.
That's right. That's right. I mean, I think there is a fine line there where you can instruct, correct, reprove, in love and kindness without judgmental, critical attitudes. I have attended the traditional gospel churches and their prayers sometimes, and their prayer sessions are more like gossip sessions. You know, you go in there and you pray for every wrong thing that everybody does and make sure everybody knows they're doing it. And that's just totally unscriptural, unheard of, and should not be done. Anybody? Go ahead.
Yeah, it's a bad thing about prayer requests. You know, I don't like being on these chat groups and stuff like that, because that's all they are. I mean, people get on there for the right intentions, I think, but it turns into the wrong thing. It turns into just gossip.
Yeah, very easily can. Very easily can. I try to tell people there are things that you pray for in public, and there's things that you pray for in private that has nothing to do with the public. If you want to intercede privately. The Father will honor it. And you don't have to deal with all the gossip session and fighting all the hearsay and everything else that goes along with it. There are things that are just not acceptable to pray for in public. Anybody? Go ahead.
Hey, Carla. Do you mind? Yes. Thanks. No, that's okay.
I think in the last section we were reading in 2 Peter, it's interesting to me. I think we brought it up last year, reading through this. When it's talking about Lot specifically, in 2 Peter 2:7 and 2:8, when it says, and rescued righteous Lot, who was oppressed with the indecent behavior of the lawless. For day after day, that righteous man, dwelling among them, tortured his righteous being by seeing and hearing their lawless works. And I can't recall, Craig's walking out, of course, but if Jasher talks more about Lot, or if there is more recording about Lot, because from the story and our just kind of Western reading of it, he's not very righteous. Like, we have to really, and maybe it's just us putting ourselves in that culture again, having to get out of our Western mindset, that to really read his story correctly. Because at least to me, reading it through, him offering his daughters, all this, it's just like, man, that was either that was righteous, or, and it being like, we don't hear more about Lot in the Genesis account, really. I mean, he kind of seems like the tag along to Abraham. He doesn't seem like this upright, righteous man. But clearly Peter knows more, whether it be from more books or whether it be from a better understanding of the Genesis account, saying righteous Lot, who was oppressed with the indecent behavior of the lawless. Like, that's strong. That's like Abraham. That's saying, I mean, it sounds so much more equivalent with Abraham, that he's dwelling among them, tortured his righteous being by being around all that lawlessness. That, he was trying to be, it sounds like, a witness, being there. And I've heard that perspective of him at the gates, him being as part of that leadership, trying to really stand up, like we know of Daniel, later, really to step into those places and try to bring righteousness, try to bring the Torah, try to be that light, is what it sounds like a lot more, at least Peter's understanding of Lot was. Not kind of at least how I often read the Genesis account.
Anybody? I am going to tell y'all before we close, I'm not going to stay down for dinner. I honor you, I glorify you. You are sovereign over all heaven and earth. All things are by you, and for your pleasure, for they created. So, Father, as we come to you this day, I thank you for your Shabbat. I thank you for your teaching, your understanding, your correction, your direction, and the wisdom of Almighty Yahweh. So, Father, as we come to you today, I ask that you bless us this day and keep us. That you would make your face to shine upon us and be gracious to us. Lift up your countenance upon us and give us your shalom. And so shall we adorn the name of Almighty Yahweh. And I say, Baruch atah av Yahweh melech ha'olam. Baruch atah av Yahweh melech ha'olam. Blessed be Father Yahweh, King of all the universe. Father, I ask that you go with us this day. Protect us as we go our way. Father, that your ministering angels would go before our vehicle and remove every obstacle, every hindrance from our path. That there would be no incident that would disturb our composure, except for your revelation along the way. And that you would keep us safe, Father, until we meet again. We ask this in Yeshua's name. And in that name, we do call it done. Thank you, Father. Thank you, Father. Hallelujah.
Hallelujah.
And we just don't have.
Do you have eSword?
I do have the separate on that. I forgot it.
Yeah.
So I looked and it was parallel with the Psalms, not with this. It does have Adonai in some of them, or my Adonai. In some of them, as opposed to this, literally. I don't know if this.
Scripture? I don't have that particular kind of book, but.